ankle and your foot are one of the most commonly injured or joints in the body that give you problems, or parts of the body that gives you problems. It's pretty important to understand, first of all, what makes up the ankle. So your ankle joint is made up of your tibia and your fibula, which come and sit on top of and next to a bone that would be underneath called your talus. It's a dome-shaped bone that sits in the ankle and the foot itself. It's the dome-shaped bone, and it's what the tibia and the talus come and sit on top of and next to. That dome-shaped bone is what allows for the up and down motion of your ankle, which ideally is the motion that we're looking for. And then we would have ligaments that sit on the side of the ankle. And those ligaments are what hold that space and keep that space closed as tight as possible, so that there's little potential for there to be any space in between your tibia and talus, so that the side-to-side motion is as limited as possible. But the problem really comes into the fact that because it's a dome-shaped setup, there's a lot of potential for side-to-side movement to occur. And that's really where the ligaments of your ankle come into play. The ligaments are like a rope. Rope shouldn't stretch, and the ligament should do the same thing. So if I have my tibia on top and my talus in my foot, there should be space in between those two bones, and then the ligament would run along the side, and that ligament should keep those two bones sitting next to each other and not allow the space to increase and not allow the side-to-side motion to occur as well. When these ligaments get stretched out, they're too long, and then what starts to happen is the space between your tibia and talus starts to increase, and there's too much space, and that's what allows you to start to roll your ankles more commonly. So even just one small ankle sprain can start to increase that space between your tibia and talus, because the ligaments get stretched out and aren't as short as they used to be once upon a time. Then we would have muscles that sit up in our calf or in our lower leg, and all of the muscles that control our foot and our ankle come from our calf and run down into our ankle or into our foot. They all run along that line from a tendon, such as your Achilles tendon or your peroneal tendon or something along that lines. But tendons are then the rubber band that attaches a muscle from up high in your calf or in your lower leg that runs down and attaches to a part of the ankle to try to give it some stability as well. So ideal movement for your ankle joint should just be up and down. It should just be forward and backwards motion. It's that up and down motion that occurs when you're walking. You put that foot out in front of you, your heel hits the ground, the foot gets back behind you, your toes push off, and that's what gives you that pointing, or what's called plantar flexion motion. Or when you're driving a car and the motion is the up and down on the gas pedal. Ideally, we would have just up and down motion of our ankle. But the problem comes in when we have this side-to-side motion. It's what's called inversion and eversion. So a little bit of inversion and eversion is needed in order for good up and down motion to occur. But inversion and eversion should be limited to about 5 to 10 degrees. And the problem comes into play where we end up with 20 or 15 or 30 degrees worth of actual available inversion and eversion mobility in our ankle. And that's what sets us up for a lot of common ankle and foot problems. We prevent all of those problems from occurring or from getting worse by making sure that the space in the joint stays as open as possible. You do that by making sure that you've got good mobility, especially in that upward direction, what's called dorsiflexion, by trying to limit and make sure that the ankle is as tight as possible in that side-to-side motion so that you don't get side-to-side shifting. And you prevent that by stretching and strengthening. Now, it's very easy to strengthen for the up and down motion, but it's very difficult to strengthen for the side-to-side motion, for that inversion and eversion. And that's really where physical therapy comes in. We can put together a specific program that's made for what you need to do in order to prevent excessive side-to-side motion. Now, if you've actually got an ankle problem, whether it's just global ankle pain, it's some swelling, it's a specific point tenderness, it's an Achilles tendonitis, it's arthritis, whatever it might be, then what we really need to do is evaluate your ankle, figure out what isn't moving properly, where the space isn't staying as open as it should be, where tendons aren't stretching out as much as they should be, and where muscles and ligaments aren't providing the support that they should be. Put together a specific program for you. Any ankle or foot problem can be taken care of, but it gets taken care of by putting a specific program together. Use, for example, plantar fasciitis. Plantar fasciitis, while it's pain along the bottom of the foot, it really is coming from the fact that your ankle joint isn't functioning the way that it's supposed to. So if we use that common foot problem of plantar fasciitis and we get the space in the joint to be the way that it should, get the Achilles tendon along the backside to be as stretched out as it should, get the ligaments to do a much better job preventing side-to-side motion, then what starts to happen is that plantar fasciitis not only gets a chance to go away, the tissue gets a chance to heal and the problem doesn't become this reoccurring thing that means I can't wear certain shoes and things along that lines. If you've had an ankle sprain, even if you had one 20 years ago, what will happen is those ligaments on the side, while they heal, they don't tighten back down the way that they're supposed to. And so you end up with excessive movement, which sets you up for problems like additional ankle sprains, arthritis, but most commonly, again, for plantar fasciitis. Plantar fasciitis is most commonly seen in people that have had repetitive ankle problems that didn't get treated correctly and handled and fully healed. So again, the benefit of physical therapy is we'll evaluate that ankle, figure out what is going on, what needs to be tightened down, what needs to be stretched out, get the joint space to be the way that it should, and make sure that the mechanics of it are correct. Most oftentimes that involves using some manual therapy, some actual hands-on therapy to open that joint space up and get tissue to release and get tissue to contract in certain positions. So if you're having any ankle or foot problems, if you've had a history of ankle sprains, whether it's 1 or 30, if you've had a history of plantar fasciitis once or 10 times, etc., let us take a look at it. Let the expert physical therapist here at Loudon Sports Therapy Center figure out what's going on with your ankle and help you to be able to have a good, happy life that allows you to move around without any ankle or foot problems.